Hello everybody, my name is Dan. I'm the other Dan of the Dans and Dom show here at Graffiti Park. So happy to be here this evening with you guys, everyone tuning in online or after the fact, and especially you all here today in person. I appreciate it. We have a topic today that's pretty near and dear to my heart. Big fan of entrepreneurship and the idea of starting our own business. We're standing in a building here today that is powered by following some of the practices we're going to talk about today, which is starting your own business, and recognize that Dan and I are still relatively young, not only in age, but in the idea of starting our own business. Graffiti Park itself is about 3.5 years old, and it's an idea we thought of sitting on a couch in college back in 2016. So it's a testament of kind of massaging the dream and sticking with it and being persistent. And so all that being said is we don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to share what's worked for us, and the different steps and things that we've tried to apply and learned along the way and have been taught by other people. So don't want to take full credit for all these concepts, and I'll shout out who I can when I can. But we have probably about 10, maybe 15 minutes of some slides. I want to walk through some different concepts. Feel free to stop me, ask questions during. Prefer if you wait to the end, but you can always stop me while we're going if you have them. But yeah, so a little overview of today. We're going to start off with talking about, before you can really dive into the weeds or the nitty-gritty of starting your own business, you want to have your why, your vision of what you're trying to do. We're going to start off with that. Then we'll jump into kind of laying the foundations. Once you have that idea, what's the next step. Then we'll get into the technical aspects, so what a lot of people think of starting your own business, which is forming an LLC, bank account, all that good stuff. And then we'll start to turn the page on, once you have all of that foundation laid, how do you take the next step and start, either getting money in the door to fund the business or the idea, start building a client base, so on and so forth, with your branding, marketing, as well as what we call UVPs, or unique value propositions. We'll deep dive that, and then we'll finish out talking about working with clients and things of that nature. I'm going to also reference, we have had a couple courses that supplement this, if you will. In the past, we've done a working with clients specific course, so we have that available on our YouTube, shameless plug. So if you want to learn more about that, how to deal with, maybe some not ideal clients, or how to deal with ideal clients, and so on and so forth, there's a separate course that we have recorded, as well as a portfolio and resume building class, which we're going to touch on today. So your why. So your vision, kind of the whole idea, and when I was sitting down with Dan, kind of thinking about this, the first point is you should not be in it to make money. If you want to start a business to make money, go on Alibaba, buy a bunch of fans for 50 cents a pop and sell them on Amazon for $2. Boom, that's how you can make money. If you want to start a business and it be for the right reasons, you got to recognize why you're doing it, because you will lose steam very quickly if you're doing it for the money. I will reference many times, I will probably say the phrase, you got to pay to play. Like I said, Dan and I thought of this idea in 2016. We started having projects and doing things in 2020, and we didn't make $1 for ourselves until 2021. So that's a long time coming before that, and we've been able to massage the dream since then. But recognize that if you're doing it, or you're starting off with that, you're kind of you need to realign and assess why you're doing things. So you should not be in it for the money, because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. There's high highs, but there's a lot of low lows, and you got to be persistent, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but you're going to lose steam quickly if you're doing it for money. And again, we'll get into that, because you're going to get a lot of people that tell you your idea is crazy, or how are you going to do that? How are you going to make money doing that? That was a big question we got asked a lot for the first 5 years of pitching our idea, was how is that going to be, how are you going to keep the lights on? Not just money for yourselves, but how are you going to be able to have all the stuff that we have here, these different GoPros, the murals behind us, all these different things. And so it takes a lot of persistence to get to that point. So step one is nail down your why, kind of plot out your vision, whether it's you want to mow lawns, you want to start that company, you want to start a YouTube business, rating restaurants or things like that. Recognize that there should be some intrinsic why behind that, but beyond just being profitable. So taking that next step, we call it laying the foundation. So this is a huge thing, is you got to take it, pen and paper. We call it take it to the board right here. is develop a business plan. Usually that consists of, you can look up business plan like components online. There might be a lot of fancy jargon in there that you're not familiar, but it starts with your mission and vision. Every business plan is going to start with that. That's why we started with our why. Then you're going to want to have goals for your company or business or yourself or whatever it might be. So kind of plot out those goals. I'll be candid, when we first sat down and developed our first business plan, which I have today, it would be hilarious. I should have brought that to show you guys, but it's very different than what you guys know us as today as Graffiti Park. At first it was like, hey, we're gonna buy a piece of land in downtown Las Vegas. We're gonna have a bunch of shipping containers on that plot of land that people can tag up. And it's like, whoa, sometimes you can't put the cart before the horse. And I'll talk a little bit about pivoting here in a second, the small turn radius for number 2 here, but recognize that you're not gonna really know where to pivot and that kind of thing until you put the pen to paper. So plot out your business plan and figure it out. What are the goals you want to do? What are the steps to execute? What are potential revenue drivers that you can have? What are going to be your expenses? What kind of support can you derive from that? Your stakeholders. Are you going to have to work with the city? Are you going to have to work with, in our case, other artists? We have a unique business where we work with a whole community of artists, but we're also working with clients. So there's kind of 2 camps that we have to appeal to be able to make the dream work, right? And with artists kind of front and center, knowing that that's our dream, is to elevate, bridge that gap between the canvases that aren't painted and the people that can paint them. We have to recognize that, you have to have that in mind if you're going to be successful talking and navigating these conversations with your clients. So we wouldn't know that if we didn't take it out to the board and do a whole map of like Graffiti Park, who are all the people it can impact, right? And so that all comes with a business plan and flushing out your options and ideas. I like to say, like, create a space, and Dan and I are very candid, like, there's no dumb ideas. I mean, surely there are dumb ideas rather, but create a space where you can share those, because sometimes dumb ideas, as silly as they might be or whatever, like, they can flush out and end up to be a good idea somewhere down the line, right? Or you can figure something out from something someone said or a joke, right? So create a space and environment. If it's just you, I'll talk about this in a second with building and leading on a team. But again, allow yourself to have those ideas, plot them out on paper, iPad, pen, paper, whiteboard, whatever it is for you. Get them out of your head, put them down, start to lay that foundation. Documentation is huge. I just mentioned we have our very first business plan. I could show it to you guys today, or in the future. I have it at my house. Like, we have a Google Drive from our notes from our very first conversations of Dan and I sitting together from all the way from 2016, our conversations with all the people that have helped us along. We have this giant page of thank yous. Many of your names are on it there that you've helped us get to this point. But it's kind of remembering and documenting that entire journey so that you can kind of see how far you've gone, how far you need to go, and learning from your mistakes. So documentation is huge, whether you use Evernote, OneNote, you have a notebook and you save them and you put the dates on it. Evernote's a free app. They have a premium version. It's pretty fire. OneNote's a Microsoft product. If you have a Microsoft subscription, it's basically digital notebooks. I'm a big pen and paper person. I like to have both. But again, document. Google Drive, again, is a huge resource. You have, I think, 15 gigs of free space on Google Drive you can utilize. For those that have worked with us in the past, that's what we use, Google Drive. We have an internal one with all of our documentation, as well as a public one that we work with different clients. So we have pictures, media, all that on there. That's a huge part of your business process, especially if you're developing content, which we'll get into, you should be doing. In today's day and age, if you're missing out and you're not developing content, then you're missing out on a large segment. We're no longer just in the days of word of mouth marketing and that kind of thing. So documentation along with your business plan and all that, and having a way to keep track of that's huge. So a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity through another company I'm involved with to hear from, his name is Gordon Eubanks. He's a self-made billionaire. He developed, if you're into computer science or programming, he is the father of the C basic programming language. He made that. And the guy's worked with Bill Gates, all that, he's a cool dude. But as you can imagine, he's, has a certain mindset. And he gave a talk, and the 3 things that he talked about were build and lead on a team. It's okay, you don't necessarily need to have a business partner or different things like that. Our big thing is collaboration over competition. We could not do this without the different companies, artists, other businesses that we've worked with on both trade. We're standing in this building right now with having that idea of building a team. the gentlemen that work out of this building primarily, or have the most office space here, I should say, they have a dispensary marketing company. They came to us looking to paint murals for their office space. They had a couple extra office spaces, this big warehouse that they weren't using a whole lot of. We were like, hey, let's help each other out here and collaborate and move forward. So build and lean on a team, that's gonna be huge. Again, if you're doing it on your own, if you wanna be just a self-made artist and you wanna create an Etsy shop and work with clients and build a portfolio and do it that way, by all means, your team could be your family, your significant other, your friends, those people around you. Ultimately, they're gonna be the ones that you can run ideas by. Again, those silly ideas, you gotta be able to run it by someone, flush some things out, get different perspectives. That's gonna be a huge thing. Don't try to do it all on your own. Number two, small turn radius. So basically be okay, be able to pivot when you need. Recognize and learn from your mistakes. We do things very different today than we did at our very first project at the YMCA 3 years ago. And that's out of necessity, right? We've learned different things, we figured out how to pivot. Like I told you guys, we wanted to have a place in downtown Las Vegas, and we will have that one day. That is the goal, is we will have Graffiti Park. But the idea is, hey, we recognize that maybe the stars aren't aligned. We don't necessarily have our proof of concept yet. We don't have a community behind us yet. So how do we pivot? Well, we recognize, oh, there's a bunch of canvases on all these blank walls throughout schools and YMCAs and municipalities in the city. So let's take this idea to other places and showcase what we can, right? And so if we didn't have a small turn radius, we'd be still at square one. And then lastly, persistence. As I mentioned, you got to be in for the long run. I think somewhere to the tune of 80 to 90% of small businesses fail after their first 2 years, right? And then after that, it's even a higher percentage before businesses get to their 10-year mark, right? And you know, obviously there's financial and economic and different impact that goes into that, but a big thing is recognizing that you got to be persistent. It's not gonna just all come to you right away. You got to flush out those different ideas, try different things, throw yourself out there. So lay the foundation. That was a lot all at once, but really starting with the why and laying the foundation. If you notice, I haven't said open a bank account. I haven't said, you know, start anything else. It's really flushing out these things so you can prop yourself up for success. The technical aspects. So full disclosure, first and foremost, I am not an attorney. I'm not barred with any state. Therefore, this is not legal advice. Seek legal counsel and legal advice if you're looking for that. But you eventually want to legitimize your business, right? And so a lot of times working with different companies or just clients or individuals, and obviously you're going to get your cool ones and there's different people, but ultimately you're going to want to set up some sort of entity. So right here I know it's a little bit small for the people in the back, but it says LLC, which is a limited liability company, sole proprietorship, so it's different. That's just kind of doing it yourself. Nonprofit, again, there's a variety. I don't think anyone, unless corporations, probably not necessarily the best route for the people watching this, but if it is, if your lawyer tells you it is, then maybe it is. But for this sake, we're going to talk about those three. Technically we are Graffiti Park LLC. We also have the Graffiti Park Foundation, which is a nonprofit. Those are two very different kind of processes that you have to go through. LLC, guys, like if you got $500 and 45 minutes and a laptop, you can form an LLC. And that probably won't even take you 45 minutes. Like, it's a very straightforward process. Outside of that, that's really, and then you have annual fees to keep it going. A lot of times to open a business account or to get business insurance or to do some of the things that you need to do to work with different clients, you're gonna need an LLC. Maybe not need an LLC, but it'll definitely put you a leg forward and again, legitimize you to some degree. Also, the nature of an LLC, limited liability company, it's a degree of separation between your work and other companies. So from a legal perspective, it can help out when it comes to if you're working with some, not everyone in the world is an awesome, loving person. So sometimes when you're working with other people, it's good to have a degree of separation from your personal bank account and that kind of thing. Which leads me to my next point, bank account. Again, legitimize your operation. Once you have that LLC, you can have a separate bank account. Again, makes payments easier. It could be more tax advantageous. So just be aware of the benefits there. Banks are pretty awesome. They offer free services. You can go in and ask questions. You can bring in your business documentation and they'll point you in the right direction. I would, and this goes to this next point, utilizing your resources. Like, there's not anything that I'm going to tell you guys on this technical aspect slide that you can't find online with some blog or some person that knows way more than I do about it. So if you really are passionate and if you've done those first two steps and it's something you want to take off the ground, then do a little bit of research beyond just watching this video, right? So especially like which banks are the best depending on what you're forming. We have a different bank for our LLC than we do our foundation, because those are very different processes, and there's different advantages for the different things, right? Going back to that real quick with a nonprofit, if that's a route, an avenue that you want to go, I encourage you definitely to do that. It's a little bit much longer, and I shouldn't say a little bit, a much longer process. There's a lot more that goes into getting approved, getting a tax exemption, all those different things. And depending on the different work we're doing, we can utilize those different entities. Sometimes clients don't necessarily have the budget to work with what would be ideal for an artist that deserves, right? And so then we can kind of work with different artists, different budgets, sizes, that kind of thing, and different, working with the kids and different municipalities and so on and so forth. So entity setup, bank account, and then lastly, utilize your resource. If you're in the state of Nevada, Nevada Silver Flume is this Nevada Secretary of State's like portal where you go and file all these things. They have step-by-step widgets and wizards to kind of ask you the right questions and set different things up. So I would encourage you to go there. They have FAQs, little chat bot you can interact with. The SBDC is this Small Business Development Center. Both Southern Nevada has a Small Business Development Center as well as UNLV. If you're a student, anyone watching this, I would encourage you to reach out to your business, like the business school or the office there. They will have some resources that you can utilize. Ask questions, if you have questions coming out of this that we can't flush out at the end, those are some good places to start. I also threw on here ChatGPT. The reality of the situation is, in today's day and age, you can go and interact with ChatGPT and ask it a bunch of different questions, and it's all about the prompts that you interact with those AI chatbots, and you would be surprised at the information that they can aggregate and provide to you. They will also tell you at the very bottom, this is legal disclaimer, they are not a lawyer, so seek legal advice, all that good stuff. And which I'll take a point, like, it took a couple years, but yeah, Dan and I do have attorneys, and we have sent them contracts, and they have reviewed things and things of that nature. We weren't in a financial position to do that at first, so we were utilizing a lot of these down at the bottom. So these are the technical aspects. A lot of people think you start with this. I would recommend starting with fleshing out those other things first, and then getting to this point so that you can make sure you're putting your money where your mouth is. Yes, sir?
What was the first one?
Entity setup, so like your LLC, your...
First of the last one.
Sorry, Nevada Silver Flume. So that Silver Flume is the Secretary of State portal type thing that they use. Pretty straightforward website, and that they have everything you need for as far as different documents, things of that nature. Once you get to this step, again, I'm going to use the phrase, you got to pay to play, right? So Dan and I are coming out of pocket paying for these things at first. We have no paying clients as of yet, but we're putting forward a few $100s, $500 here, a couple $100s here to operationalize and get these things going, as well as taking money out of our savings to put into that bank account so that we can pay for certain things to then take it to the next step. So branding and marketing. So once you have your business plan, you kind of have your name should probably come before you start your LLC, so that you can name your LLC after whatever name you want to go with. But I have 3 things here, we'll touch on each. The first is name and logo. Don't underestimate the value of a cool name. Dan and I went through this whole exercise over a couple months. Do we call ourselves the art park, street art, whatever? And we're like, no, we want to kick it with graffiti artists. Let's wear it on our sleeves. Like, who cares what people think of that word? If it's misconstrued, let's change their opinion, because at the end of the day, like, those are the core people that we want to bridge the gap to, want to interact with, that aren't elevated the talent level and often looked at in a negative connotation. So that's where we came up with our name. This logo, honestly guys, we paid some guy in Pakistan on Fiverr to design this logo like 5 years ago, and we're rocking with it. It's on all of our, as you guys seen, it's on all of our merch, it's on our hats, all that good stuff. We rock with it. Schools like it. We've thrown that logo up at a bunch of different schools and locations we painted, stencils of that. So you got to find what works for you. Take some time, especially if you're an artist, take some time to design something, special for you. Everyone kind of has maybe how they sign off on their murals, maybe that's your logo, whatever it might be. I would encourage you to get creative with it, because that's what people are going to recognize you as. You all know, like, the Nike swoosh, the Adidas stripes, the Pepsi circles, all those different things. Again, don't underestimate the value of a cool name and logo and the value that can provide for your brand. We are doing a whole separate class on merchandising and branding. That will be our professional development class for the month of September. So we'll be doing a deep diving on all the vendors we've worked with, some different things you can do there. So if you want to know more specific information, happy to touch base offline, as well as at the end of this session. So once you have your name and logo, I recommend creating some business cards. Stickers are huge in our industry. Different things that you can hand to clients or people with your contact information. You would be shocked. I have like 100. I completely restock business cards in my truck all the time. Like anytime I'm walking into a cool place and have a good vibe there, or interacting with people and feel like, hey, could be an opportunity. There's a huge blank wall in here. If you're traveling, those different things. Don't be afraid, again, to throw yourself out there. It's a minimum investment. You can go to Vistaprint, variety of other places. There's the local places here in town that you can go to create those things. There's a bunch of digital business cards you can have now, the little plastic cards that like people can tap with the NFC technology in all of our phones, where it just automatically puts people's contact information or in your phone or vice versa. That's a huge asset that I recommend having both. There's a lot of business owners that appreciate that are old school, good old paper, have something there. Along with business cards, a huge thing, and this again could be depending on where you're at in your journey, are brochures. Don, will you grab me a brochure off of Fernanda? This is a huge step that we took this year, is developing, kind of taking our different services and portfolio and being able to showcase that, and again have another tangible thing. So we have these brochures, custom art and experience curation. On the back's got our QR code. And then throughout, we have like kind of what it looks like, how we can make your dream a reality type of thing. And then all the different people we've worked with in the past, as well as, just kind of different artwork and how we've been able to showcase and elevate different people, right? And so this is a huge thing that, why we make a difference, why you should partner with us, and so on and so forth. And this is a huge thing that we're able to give with a business card to people that helps them kind of understand what our business is. So branding and marketing is more than just social media, which is my next point. And so again, I mentioned it earlier, if you're not making content, then you're missing out. If you're serious about your business and you're serious about elevating, taking it to the next level, you should be on every platform and have some sort of strategy. So not just post when you get things done, have a strategy. We've worked with another company out here called Bluff Street Productions, where they've helped us to develop an actual strategy with our social media, to where it's like, okay, we have all this content we're creating. For those of you that have been at our events, we're rock and rolling with a bunch of content. So they help us kind of organize all of that, make those different reels. I'll be the first to tell you, I suck at it. My personal IG is not blasted with a bunch of Graffiti Park stuff, but I try to repost when I can. Create a separate account for your business, if that makes sense to you. So social media is huge. Don't underestimate the value of that. Have a plan, have a strategy, continually post, and set apart some time to be strategic with, don't just doom scroll all the time. If you're serious about your company or the thing that you want to do, and again, I say company and business, like if you're just a starving artist and you want to elevate that and you want to live off of creating, and I hate that term, I hate that I just used it, but if you're an artist that wants to elevate what you're doing and make that your sense of income, take some time to be strategic and intentional. Look on what are other successful artists posting, what is their schedule like. Don't bite people, create your own vibe and that kind of thing, but recognize what you're doing. Yes, sir.
Call it fishing.
Fishing. Okay, I like that term. So just kind of get out there and see what's going on in the industry and the vibe. Yeah. Absolutely. So throw your lines out there and get to fishing. All right. So unique value propositions. You got 2 more slides, guys. This one we'll drive it home here. Pretty much what do we mean by this is what makes your business stand out, your idea, your company. Why should anyone opt to go with you over the competition, right? Is it your service that you provide? Is it your technique, your specific talent? Maybe no one else is doing that in the industry, so to speak, right? One of the things, just to give you guys an example, that Dan and I really like to hang our hat on is we're turnkey operation. So when someone works with us, we're going to make sure that the place is prepped good. If you're an artist that's working with us, we're going to make sure that your area is prepped. You have the paint that you need. We're going to get you lunch if you need it. Like that's a part of the service we provide both to our artist community and to the clients that we're working with, right? So we find that as a UVP for our particular company, right? Not to say other mural companies aren't doing it right, but that's what we like to provide, right? And so part of your unique value proposition is know your services. If you're mowing lawns, right, there's probably a bunch of other people mowing lawns, but figure out what makes your situation unique. Can you do it in a more timely manner? Do you have all the equipment? Is your pricing unique necessarily, right? Maybe you come in at a cheaper rate than your competition or the industry, right? So recognize that along with your UVPs, you want to develop what's called a proof of concept. So a lot of times before you can go and charge industry standard pricing, you're going to have to do some work for free, first and foremost. You got to pay to play. Our first probably 10 projects we were in the red on, and it's Dan and I forking up money and paycheck to paycheck, you know, and you'd be surprised, even today there's projects that are that nature, right? Because it's a part of building our brand, our portfolio. We're still very young, we still got a lot of goals and aspirations as a company, so we're still developing that proof of concept of what we can do. If we have an opportunity to go big and showcase some things, and we may lose a little money on it, or the margins aren't great, we're gonna do that. Right? But we're obviously going to take care of the artists, and we're going to make sure our services aren't hindered, as I just said. But at the end of the day, we're still developing that proof of concept. So again, no matter what it is, you're going to have to get in there. A part of that is just working hard. Like if you want to create content, if you want to create a YouTube channel, whatever it is, like you just got to go make videos. They're going to be bad at first, but if you keep making more videos, then they're going to get better, right? Same thing with artwork, whatever it is, you got to put in the work. And then ultimately, while you're doing that, you're building a portfolio. You want to be able to showcase future clients what you have to offer, what makes you unique compared to other things, all right? So we talked about kind of your why, setting up, laying the foundation, then legitimizing the situation. And once you're legit, like how do you brand and market that situation? Right, and then this is more of like how do you get repeat clients? So I use the word clients just at the first here, but we don't really like to use clients or customers in our vernacular. We want to create, and this is for Tony Robbins, raving fans. Like pretty much most of our work, to be frank, is word of mouth. We do a lot of marketing. We don't just rely on word of mouth marketing, but when it comes to the school district, every school that you guys have participated in, that principal has found out about us from another principal, or has found out about us through testimony through another teacher or something like that, right? And that's because we try to be very intentional about creating raving fans, right? And because they want to win you, they want to try to get people over to support your team, what you're working on, right? And so, like I said, you got to pay to play. A lot of times you're not gonna. Your ideal fans and people that you're working with aren't gonna have the budget. Like, you know, not everyone out here has these six figure budgets, you know, or even $1,000 budgets. You'd be surprised how many people, maybe you're not surprised how many people are like, I got $200, and you're looking at a job and you're like, that'll barely front the paint bill on this situation, right? Or whatever company or business or product that you're trying to sell or service that you're trying to sell. So recognize that when you're creating raving fans, a lot of times you're gonna have to pay to play at first, but that raving fan, when they make it down the road, they might be able to pay you what would be ideal, or they might know someone who can get you connected, and so on and so forth. So recognize it's not always gonna be an ideal scenario, industry standard prices, XYZ. There's a lot of legwork that goes into that. Identify your target market and industries that you wanna work with, right? So for us, you know, there's a lot of different blank walls out here in Vegas, but what we found is what really aligns with our mission are elementary, middle, and high schools, and these YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, working with the city of North Las Vegas. A lot of these are underserved communities. The artwork that they're working with are usually just from the couple artists that the people that work there might know or might not know. So they're limited to that style, that pricing, that kind of thing. And so we found, okay, there's a huge niche here that we can dive in on, and it aligns with our why, right? Our mission is to paint every blank canvas in the world. Why not start with the future generation of artists, right? Unfortunately, there's been over $3 million in budget cuts to art programs in Clark County School District over the past decade. And so that's a huge target market for us to be able to go in and provide. I like to share this story all the time. I've had many artists I can count on both hands come and tell me, hey, there was a mural in my elementary school, that's why I create art. So when I saw what you guys are doing, I wanted to hop on that and see if I can get involved, right? That's huge for us because that kind of affirms for us that we're rocking and rolling in the right market and industries. It's not to say if you're not a school that we won't come and paint you, but at the end of the day, that's kind of where we try to focus our efforts and energies at the start of the day. And then the last thing I want to end with you guys is the rules of the game that we try to always remind ourselves. And if you're starting to work with clients, is number one is be clear in your expectations with your client or customer or fan or whatever you're working with. Maybe it's a partner, a barter situation with another company, as I mentioned before. Like, what are the expectations? What are you looking to get out of this? What are you paying for? What are we giving you? Kind of thing. So recognize that either a verbal, try to do written contracts when applicable. That's a huge thing. But again, if you're just starting out, maybe a written contract doesn't make all that much sense. That's okay. Just make sure that you clearly communicate those expectations. Second is budget. Be upfront. I recommend that not being necessarily the first conversation that you have with potential clients. Money is a weird conversation for a lot of people. So, once you kind of understand what the expectations are, who the person is you're working with, and again, whatever service, product you're providing, there's obviously, they know at the end of the day, there's a cost to it, And if they're looking for free work, that's on you to kind of decipher who you want to work with and establish and see what makes the most sense. But recognize that should be a question down the point. Rules of the game, your expectation, budget, what is their budget? What is your budget for a project like that? And then timeline. Timeline's a big thing that people, especially in the art community, I wish would pay a little bit more attention to. Sometimes you have to have respect. You have to have a lot of respect for the creative process, but you also have to recognize that sometimes when people's restaurants want to open or certain things like that, that you got to be able to be flexible and work with different people. And so the best thing to do is to clearly communicate those up front. What's the timeline? Here's how much time I would need to complete this project on your end. Asking them, when do you need this by? If it's a quick turnaround, mental health is a big thing. Don't bend yourself over backwards or burn the candle on both ends. Clearly communicate those, and that's why number 4 is your communication model. I've said that for each one of these 3. Establish what that communication model, aside from communicating expectations, budget, and timeline, are we texting each other? Do phone calls work better for you? Are we emailing each other? Or DMs on Instagram or whatever else, right? Just make sure you kind of have that established and be upfront with the client. Like, hey, what would you prefer? We can do whatever, or if you have a preferred method, you say that, right? And so by doing those 4 things, we call it rules of the game, by taking a look at who you want to focus on, recognizing you're going to have to be flexible with your budget and that kind of thing. Those are some of the steps that we've dialed in on how to start a business. And the rest is really up to your idea, and you're only limited to your creativity. And I think this was thrown in the Discord last night. Like, you're limited to your creativity and how hard you're willing to work. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. Like, it's ultimately up to your ability to be persistent, put in the work, put in the research, do the fishing that you need to see what's going on in your industry. Be able to pivot, lean on a team, all those things kind of come together. If you notice, we spent a little bit of time on it, but it's not about setting up an LLC and a bank account and having all these official documents. That's a piece of it, but the big piece is everything else that we've talked about. What questions can I answer?
Can I get a hoorah?
Hoorah!
Hoorah.
What's up, buddy?
For those who have not set up a bank account or an LLC, at what point do you actually recommend doing that?
Probably once you've, so that's something like we did probably too soon. Like we formed our LLC like in March of 2020, which was a great time to start a business. But
March
so
18th?
yeah, so quite literally we're like, oh, we'll just be shut down for a week. Like I said, we thought about the idea in 2016. We had like the business plan and all that. And then before we had any real fruitful kind of potential clients or anything like that, we started our LLC. So that might be a little soon. It's really kind of up to you on like what your financial picture is like. Like I said, that's going to cost you about $500, $600 or so. But if you're already like bringing in money, have some potential clients, you see some traction, you have some followers, whatever, then I'd say it's probably an appropriate time to do that. And it also depends on who you've identified as your target market. So if you're working with just like individuals, like people like just, you know, like I said, like if you're like mowing lawns or something like that, as I hate to keep using that example, but just to simplify things, and you're just going door to door and working with people like residential, yeah. Then you probably, they're not probably like, oh, do you have an LLC? You know, but at the end of the day, if you do, that might, you know, they might be more apt to work with you, right? So it kind of just depends on how much potential you feel like you already have or have developed, as well as your financial picture, along with who your target market and whatnot is. Like for us, CCSD, we could not work with them if we did not have a company. Like we had to be, there's a whole licensed vendor route that you have to go through. Again, you're gonna work with, there's anomalies. I'm sure there's principals out there that are like, oh, sure, here you go. You know, but in mass, to kind of do what we wanted to do, that was the route we had to take. So that was an it depends answer, but you gotta kind of fill in the blank there. Yes, sir.
It also depend, like if you got an LLC, to have like some sort of like business license or like non-profit attached to that LLC or something like that.
So yeah, so that's a good question. So when you apply for your LLC, you typically, at least in the state of Nevada, every state is different, but in the state of Nevada, you are applying for your state business license along with applying for what's called your articles of incorporation, which are just these like all fancy words for just a form that you pay the state for to give you, like, here you go, here's your official thing. Along with that, you'll create what's called an EIN, Employer Identification Number. That is basically a social security number for your company. So when, you know, if you're filling out W-9s or things like that, you can put in an EIN instead of a social security. So you're kind of doing those steps one and the same. Non-profit route, depending on what you want to do, that could be up to a year-long process. There's expedited ways to fill out. That's like a whole IRS thing. They're going to do a background check on you. You got to submit a bunch of different documentations to kind of prove like what you're doing is not for profit. You're not trying to exploit groups, people, or XYZ. So, but yeah, it would kind of depend on those things. So to affirm that, like we started an LLC, then we opened a bank account. We didn't open and then that was about 1.5 years before we got our nonprofit status. And then once we got that, we did some research and took another few months to open a bank for our foundation, open a bank account for that. So, and that was after a couple years of working and, you know, putting money in a personal savings account that's like, hey, that's for our, you know, eventually our little nest egg to keep the lights on kind of thing. What other questions can I answer? Tight. Thank you guys for hanging out. That was longer than 10-15 minutes, but I had to get the info out. So.